11 of the Act. The committee is committed to proceeding with the inquiry at its earliest convenience. The inquiry is a due process to which the rules of natural justice apply. The committee, having sought and obtained legal advice on the due processes, resolved yesterday, the 18th October 2016, to abide by the rules of natural justice. To this end, the committee processes are in progress and in preparation for the hearing. The committee hopes to serve members of the board with the notice of hearing by no later than Friday, 28th October 2016. It is after then that the inquiry date will be decided. And we hope this will be done immediately after we serve the notices of hearing to all members of the board and those who are invited to the hearing. I thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Colleagues, members of the media, that was just the statement, short and to the point. I'm going to ask you if you have any questions to raise your hand so that we can see if you have a question. We will recognize you and the chairperson will be able to take the questions. And in the interest of time and free flow of the session, I will appeal to you that we ask questions based on the subject matter, and any other matter can be entertained outside this session. The chairperson is always available. You can have one-on-one. You will be able to grant you interview. But for now, let's talk about the subject matter at hand. I will recognize you. You just say your name, where you come from, and then you can pose a question. Thank you. It will be 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order. Thank you.
Hi, Chairperson Chantal from the African News Agency. When you took the decision to institute the inquiry, you also said you were going to write to the board members asking them to resign. Have you sent those letters, and what was the response from the board members? And then also you said other people you're going to send notices of hearing to other people invited. Who else is invited? Who's on your witness list, so to speak?
Hi, good afternoon, Chairperson. My name is Andy Siwe from City Press. I am partly covered because I also wanted to know whether...
Oh, yeah, they're saying just raise on the voice.
Okay, I wanted to know whether the board members did respond and what were their responses to the request for them to resign. I also see that you will be serving the letters, the notices of the hearing by the 28th. By which date do you hope to start having the inquiry, and do you have timelines for that process? Thank you.
Jan Gerber, Netwerk 24. Can you explain why yesterday's the discussion of this inquiry yesterday was closed to the media at the committee meeting? And secondly, do you have any contingency plans if the SABC board members try to derail the process or to slow the process down, as what happened with Ellen Chabalala's inquiry? Thanks.
Hi, it's Vegazela from Business Day newspaper. I've just got two questions really linked to the processes going forward. Is it safe for one then to conclude that the inquiry is merely a formality, in the sense that you will definitely come to the conclusion that the board needs to be dissolved? So in a sense, if you're approaching it from that, it comes across as unfair? I mean, if you're looking at it from outside, for the board members that are remaining behind. Also, the 4 board members, will they have to physically be present during the inquiry, or can they just send their lawyers perhaps? I just want to find out the processes going forward. Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chantal. Yes, we did receive responses from the 3 board members out of the 4 remaining, meaning the non-executive. And their responses contained in their communication was that they are, at the time they were supposed to consult their lawyers, but willing to come to the inquiry. That was their response, all 3 of them. Only 1, we haven't received a response. The second question is, who else is invited? The notices of inquiry will go to a number of people who were part of the board in the past. In fact, what we're going to do specifically is the 4 board members, including those who resigned. But in terms of witnesses, we are looking broadly to a number of people who were in the SABC before, those who resigned and those were dismissed. So that's the side of the witnesses that we want to call, so that they give us what is necessary for us to balance the evidence that we'll get from everybody else. The timelines, as we say, at the end of next week, we hope the notices of inquiry will be out, and those notices of inquiry will also reflect as to when we think we'll start the inquiry. And for purposes of giving them time to prepare, looking at it roughly, we're saying maybe it will be necessary to let that process continue of organizing all the facts and then communicate with them by next week, at least by Friday, we'll communicate what is clear as to when are we going to start the process. But we are not yet there. But generally, we're thinking that at least we must give them time to prepare. Honorable Kalako will deal with other matters. I've dealt with 3 questions, so that it's not my show.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the whether the inquiry is just a formality. No, it's not just a formality. That is why we have decided to institute a due process instead of taking shortcuts, so that we avoid any challenges to the process itself. Hence, we have followed and adhered to laws of natural justice, as mentioned in the statement. So it's not just a formality. We want to be fair, to follow all the processes. There was, I didn't hear it correctly, whether you were asking about the contingency plans on what?
If there are attempts to draw the process out, like what happened with Ellen Shabalala's inquiry a few years ago.
Okay. That question is coupled with the representation. The question that you see, the Parliament, Parliament have actually appointed, interviewed, and selected members of the board, not their legal representatives. We will expect them physically to be present in the inquiry, to answer physically themselves, whether they will be bringing their legal representatives. But people who are in the board who must answer to issues and problems which we have actually highlighted, which were happening in the SABC, and people who will know how the board functioned. It's them, not their legal representatives. So we'll expect them to be here. In avoiding the drawn-out process like you are raising, it was a case with Ms. Shabalala. That is why we want to prepare and make sure that we have allowed those who want to come forward. We have not closed anyone. And we have and people who were in the board who feel that, or were even because there are executives which were suspended, dismissed. Some of them might want to come. So we don't want it to close the process so that nobody accuses the committee that they were closed outside.
We really want the process to be as fair as possible so that those who will be answering questions to the inquiry have time to prepare, have time to consult their legal representatives, and they come prepared to the inquiry. So that is why we had to postpone the inquiry, having been advised by our legal services. So we took it very serious, the advice, so that when we start the process, there are no questions about how we've gone about preparing for it. Your question refers to yesterday's meeting. Yesterday, we had a meeting with the Brand South Africa and MDDA to consider their annual reports, and that we did successfully, and we finished that and closed the meeting in respect to that. And I'm sure it's in your diaries, that's what you have. But at the end of all that, I requested members of parliament to remain so that I can consult as chair of the committee on a private matter, not related to the meeting of the morning. That we did, and if you are aware of the rules of parliament, the committee has a right to do that, particularly after a meeting or whenever it decides, because the rules are very clear on that. So that was the reason why we had to request everybody to leave so that we can consider a matter that is private. And we did that, and all parties in that meeting agreed that it's a correct route. So we worked within the confines of the rules of Parliament. No question about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, honorable members. Colleagues, I'm not sure if you're going to have a second bite for clarity. In that case, then we'll continue. It will be the same order, Chantel and Disiwe, and then you'll be the last. And Bulelani, you are identified as well. Thank you.
Just some follow-up questions. The board members who responded, could you please give us the names of who did respond, who didn't respond, and whether they answered the question on whether they would resign in those letters? And then also you said they were consulting with their legal representatives. Are you anticipating any court action to prevent the inquiry?
And this is Makinana from City Press again. Chairperson, I don't mean to push you, but can you just give us an idea about around what time do you want this matter to be finalized? Because at the moment there's no board, basically, since there's no quorum. Can you, maybe you don't have a date of the inquiry, but can you just give us an idea by when do you want this whole matter to be concluded by Parliament? And also, I mean, there's a, we're busy with annual reports. What's happening with the SABC then? What's going to happen in terms of them coming to account for 2015, 2016?
Bulelani, SABC. I mean, as things stand now, how many witnesses are on your list, the people that you will be sending out letters to? And if possible, can you give us the names of those people? Thanks.
Begazela again from Business Day. I don't mean to keep asking this question, but in terms of the inquiry, because during the previous meeting with the SABC board, when the two members resigned, what came out was that the committee had taken a definite decision to dissolve the board. That's what came out. So I'm asking this question. So if you're going to go ahead with the inquiry, is there a possibility that another decision that is not dissolving the board can be reached? If you can just give us clarity on that. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair. Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Just to follow on Bekezela's question there, please explain how a board member who is appointed at the pleasure of somebody else, whether it's a private company or state-owned company, refuses to resign. The Labour Relations Act does not apply to board members of companies and organizations. So why does the committee not just immediately call for the National Assembly to pass a resolution to dissolve the board, and without going through all this time of having an investigation? As I said, the members of the board are not governed by the Labour Relations Act. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The first question is about the responses by those three board members. And you want the names. The first name is the chairperson of the board, Professor Makube. The second one is Dr. Chitsumba. I hope I'm pronouncing him right. And the last one is a member of the board, Mhlakaza. The only one who hasn't communicated with us from the four members of the board is Ms. Kumalo. I think the first name is Leah Kumalo. That is the only person who hasn't responded to us. And I thought I was saying they were clear that they are not going to resign, but they will consult their lawyers. They will consult their lawyers, but they came back to say they are not going to resign. They will come to the inquiry. That's the first two questions. How many witnesses in the list? Still trying to. There are so many witnesses who want to come. But if in this house we are 5 and we are saying the same thing, there is no need to bring all of us to the inquiry, only one. So the list that we have by yesterday when we met as a committee was 18 plus 8, 26, isn't it? They're about 26. But as I say, we cannot have all of them because some of them will be saying the same thing. That's the number of the people in the list, and we circulated that list to all members yesterday. That's how many witnesses in the list. Honorable Kalako was dealing with the question of your question that you asked again. The what? That there is a question that says, when we met, we were very clear that the board must be dissolved. You asked that question for the second time. Maybe we need to, again, Honorable Kalako, attempt to satisfy the member. And the last one. There are 2 outstanding questions.
Yes, if you follow the deliberations of the committee, there is that interpretation or impression created that the committee wants the board dissolved. And but to do that, you have to follow a due process. There are procedures. And what will determine the finally, that is why we have to, there are processes and procedures, so that we don't just do things as a committee willy-nilly, illegally. So, and those things are thrown back to us in Parliament. So, on the issue that the committee, we cannot determine here now that the committee will come with a different maybe opinion or with the same opinion. That will be determined by the inquiry. It will be determined by the facts which we get out of the inquiry, which will prove whether the positions taken and the views expressed by members of the committee are correct or wrong. The inquiry will prove that and determine that. It will actually guide the resolvement of the board. That's its purpose. That's why we have it. And then also on the question of, you said you are from Blom? Yeah. On the question of why don't we just, because these board members were put there by us, Parliament, why don't we just say, no, look, resign? And I'm sure you're asking this question because we have written to them, asking them to resign. But their response is to refuse to resign. So that will have put us into a process. So even in taking the parliament, taking that resolution, which will have to go through, and the process of inquiry, develop that resolution, and send it to parliament to take that decision. It doesn't start with us or the parliament taking a resolution. All parliament now have agreed on the proposal of the committee is the institution of the inquiry, which is going to lead us to actually whether, based on the facts coming out of the inquiry, we are dissolving the board or not.
I think we have the question that we haven't dealt with is the question of Andisiwe. Again, we're saying by the 28th of October, which is next Friday, we will be communicating notices of inquiry to all of them. And finishing the whole thing will be determined by that process of sitting down with them, questions and all that. But let me assure you that the last plenary of Parliament, apart from the mini plenaries, is on the 9th of November. And then there are mini plenaries after that. So our target is by the time when Parliament rises. And we talk next month. So to do justice to the whole process, we need to do what I've said. We must give them time. They must prepare to be thorough when we meet with them, so that they come here prepared. And even when we meet them, at least we deal with everything. So by the end of November, for sure, we'll be reporting back to Parliament. Remember that we're supposed to report to Parliament after all this process. So I can safely say that by that time will be done, unless there are developments that we don't know. And what happens in the meantime, we don't expect any decision to be taken by anybody, decision that is supposed to be taken by the board, because the board doesn't have a quorum. As we have 4 non-executive members at the moment. So we don't expect anything that will be endorsed by a board that doesn't correct. Thank you.
On their reports, because there was that question, they were supposed to appear before us. In fact, they were in the program, just like all other units, entities under the Department of Communication. But because of this inquiry and because of the developments, we have taken a decision as a committee not to get into the annual reports and to call them to come to the committee, because now we're dealing with them on a different matter.
Okay, thank you, honorable members. Colleagues, I think that sums it. Okay, yeah, no, sorry, we skipped that one. They will have to respond to you before we we adjourn the sitting. Is the question on whether are you anticipating any court action coming from the board to perhaps prevent the committee from continuing?
No, really, it was not. Maybe we should have responded, but because we can't anticipate anything. So whatever will come, we'll deal with it at that point. So really, we can't say this is what they will do. That is why we are saying give everybody a chance, fair, so that one is able to say, your witnesses are wrong. We were right. So we'll deal with anything that comes at that point.
Okay, colleagues. Yeah, just put your mic on so that you can.
Question, the day after you took that resolution, the SABC had a media briefing and the chairperson of the board basically accused MPs in this particular committee of intimidating him and bullying him to resign. I just wondered if you had a response to that.
I think I did respond, not today. And my response was simple, that anybody has a right to say whatever he or she wants to say. But we know that we never bullied anybody. What we did was to advise them to resign because they are non-existent as the board collectively. They can be there individually, but collectively there is no board, they can't take decisions. We were advising them on those bases. And maybe if they did that, that would work in their favor, so that they avoid a number of things. But I'm saying it was the professor's right to say whatever he wanted to say at that point. But we never bullied anybody. We advised them to resign. It's not our call. It's theirs. Thanks.
Okay, colleagues, I'm now going to ask you to save whatever question you have for one-on-one with the chairperson. I just conferred with him is available for one-on-one, especially also with other matters that are pertaining to the committee, but were not part of the subject matter that we're talking about now. The chairperson will be willing to take those questions. But for now, thank you very much for coming. It was a short notice, and you managed to find time in your busy schedule to attend.
Well, the SABC Board inquiry update there from Parliament's Communications Committee. The inquiry was to have started today, but it has been postponed until next week. And the committee resolved early last month to institute that inquiry into the fitness of the board and as well as SABC's financial position. So the committee, what came out of that, they hope to serve board members with a notice of hearing no later than next Friday, the 28th of October. And the date for the inquiry will be set after those notices of hearing have been served on the board members. And the notices will also be sent to witnesses, which will include the 4 board members who resigned and those who were dismissed. So timelines for this, we should know by the end of next week. The notices of inquiry will be out, and then those will reflect when the inquiry will start. And of course, the purpose of the inquiry is really what they said there, to guide the committee on the issue of the board's dissolution, and the dissolution of the board has to follow due inquiry. So they can't say if the committee will change their view on the need to dissolve the board. So that's what's coming out of that briefing, and they hope that by the 9th of November, which is when Parliament rises, they will have settled this matter with the inquiry. Well, that's where we leave it for today with News Live. We are back again tomorrow. Your news headlines coming up at the top of the hour with Alicia Jolly. It's bye from me.
Police found powerful military explosives when they swooped on a house in Springs on the Gauteng.
Some of the weapons seized at this house included rocket-propelled grenades, rifles, and even rounds of ammunition.
All military explosives that we found that you cannot obtain a commission.
The weapons found at the house not only had the potential to cause major damage to property, but they also put many lives at risk.
I could have lost any one of my family members, or most of my family members.
A presumed U.S. drone strike in the south of the country has killed 3 al-Qaeda suspects.
Death toll in Yemen's 18-month-old civil war now stands at about 10,000.
People get killed or die and are actually buried before they're recorded, and we don't have a way of recording that, but we know the numbers are much higher.
Water restrictions are to be imposed on villages in and around the Nkomazi municipality.
Pumps can't pump the water because there's no water in a river, and if the water is coming back, then it's full of mud.
Those who can pray and those who can do any miracle to make sure that we've got enough rain, give it a try.
Avenue comes alive on Wednesday evenings as the shipping container mall hosts a night market.
So it's really about the best. We only want, you've got a plethora of restaurants in Melville already, we don't need any more. They do authentic African food. The Sicilian Pilgrim guys, authentic Sicilian pizzas. We don't want to replicate or duplicate anything that's happening in Melville. We want to give something new to Melville that isn't already here.
We're trying to work on the design. They change every week, but that's just the nature of you know, design and clothes. And you know, we've got people over there that they sell any kind of thing. They're a bit more sporadic than, let's say, the food stalls. But the food stalls, we've got everything here from Mexican to Serbian food to Indian food to Thai food to sushi to African food, pizzas, dim sum. The list goes on. And they are always here, every single week.
27 Boxes is an art hub mall that is situated in the heart of Melville and gives the community a place to hang out and grab a bite to push start the fun part of the week.